Have you ever seen something from the corner of your eye that wasn't there when you looked again? How about hearing from a friend of a friend that while they were hiking somewhere, they thought they saw something impossible, but when they spoke to a park ranger, there was always a simple explanation that left them unsatisfied? My name is Jack, and this is my colleague Chris, and we are senior wardens for the Creature Conservation Initiative. We protect the world from the creatures of superstition and myth, but more importantly, protect those same creatures from the world. Hello there, everyone who's listening, and hello there, Chris. How are you doing today?
Hello. How am I doing? Do you know that feeling when you feel a cold coming on, but it doesn't, but you feel that it's almost around the corner? I've been dealing with that for the last few weeks, but other than that, I'm doing pretty great, actually. How about you?
Oh no, have you been going anywhere near Chon Chons again?
I haven't. At least not that I know of.
Well, I'm doing pretty good, thank you very much. I have actually been having quite a lot of fun recently in my job.
Ooh.
A couple of serious notes, but it's all ended quite nicely, and usually with a bit of a joke at the end of it. So I'm feeling pretty good.
Yeah?
Yeah, everything's been going quite well for me. They have had me actually not far from my own home. They've had me back in the UK rather than somewhere halfway across the world for the last couple of weeks.
Well, to be fair, there is a lot of weird creatures in the UK, so there's a lot to do.
There are quite a lot of weird creatures. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of work for a warden. I mean, if you haven't gone to the UK as a warden, they probably don't consider you to be a good warden.
Probably.
They've had me working with these wonderful creatures that have quite a society, if I'm perfectly honest. They are fully intelligent. They can even easily rival human intelligence in their approach.
Okay.
And we treat them in a similar way to you guys when you treated the mermaids.
Interesting. I'm not quite sure I know what you're talking about.
Well, it's a very, very common creature commonly seen around Scotland, but also in different parts of kind of like the north part of like Europe, that kind of area.
Yes?
We are today talking about selkies.
Oh.
Have you heard of them before?
I've heard of them, but I haven't really met any one of them.
Well, I'm not surprised by that because they are quite wary of people. But
Same, honestly.
But the reasons for that will become quite evident as we go through today's episode. But we'll just start off nice and easy. The selkie is the Scots word for grey seal.
Okay, isn't that just a normal seal?
You would think so, except these are shape-shifting seals.
Oh no. I'm always wary about around shapeshifters. So wary that I can't even talk, apparently.
Well, to be perfectly honest, these shapeshifters need to be wary about humans based on the stories and the history and everything that goes on around them.
Are they getting clubbed?
Not quite. At least there are a couple of stories like that. But again, we'll kind of get onto that as we go along. But no, they have the ability to shapeshift between being a human and a seal.
Okay.
They do this very, very specifically by putting on or taking off their seal skin. I don't mean the clothing brand Sealskins.
That sounds kind of horrifying.
It's supposed to... It is not a pretty sight, but it is something that they do physically do. They have a bit of Celtic and the Norse kind of origin, which is why I say you tend to see them in more kind of like North, kind of Scandinavian countries, but also obviously if we're talking Scotland up towards the Orkneys and Iceland, it's all those kinds of areas, very much North Sea type.
So does that mean they carry their skin around with them like a coat?
Not quite, because this is where part of the problem comes with them. But again, we'll get onto that because there's so many stories about selkies, and they are fascinating creatures. They're wonderful to actually have a conversation with because, like I say, they rival human intelligence. I'm not talking like technologically. I'm talking about they just have they have a similar level of intelligence as us.
Yeah.
You can have a conversation. They have a society. They have their own. They literally have their own undersea society.
Interesting.
Not quite undersea is probably not the right way to kind of put it, but it's more there is an area under the sea that is open that they live in around that kind of North Sea area. No, I'm not going to give coordinates for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But they literally have their own kind of life, their own little society, which is why I say we treat them a little bit like we do with the mermaids.
Yeah.
They're not some creature for us to maintain or to corral anywhere. Most of the time, we are acting as ambassadors towards them. We are just looking after them as best we can and trying to keep them from having issues with us and us having issues with them.
And them having issues with mermaids. I'm pretty sure I remember some kind of trouble when I was meeting up with the mermaids. They were talking about the goings on in there, but I didn't really care.
Fair enough. Now, yeah, they have had run-ins with mermaids. They've even been mistaken for mermaids, but they have their own society. They are basically another species that shares the Earth.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't really notice them and know too much about them, or at least majority of the time we don't notice or know too much about them. They exist in the Faroese, Icelandic, Irish, Chinook, Native American, and Manx cultures.
They're getting around.
Yeah, they do travel, and Selkies have inspired the creation of music, art, film, and literature all over the place. Purely because, again, they are these wonderful creatures that are essentially, when they turn into humans, incredibly attractive.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that.
Most people aren't. You don't expect the attractive Selkie.
Just this mental image of a seal tearing open and just a beautiful person comes stepping out of the bloody skin.
Yeah, this is part of the issue. And obviously they have existed in myth and legend for quite a long time. And this is one of those rare opportunities where people have tried to explain what they truly are. And it's wild.
It always is.
What do you think people have said Selkies actually are?
Oh, I don't know. Probably some kind of sea god at some point, or, angels of Poseidon or whatever.
You're not a million miles away with the angels in what religion tries to kind of think they are.
Yeah.
But no, don't get me wrong, this description is slightly problematic, but it's fascinating how people came up with this idea.
Okay.
So some people have tried explaining the origins of the Selkies, and common ideas that Selkies were mistaken for literal human beings. It was believed that Scottish settlers met and married Finnish and Sami people who would typically have dark coloured hair and would be wearing seal skin clothing, as well as boats made from seal skins for waterproofing.
Okay. So they're just working on the assumption that some human decided to put on the skin of a seal at some point.
Well, I mean, people literally will make clothes out of seals because obviously seals are waterproof, or at least water resistant.
That's true.
The skin of a seal is.
There are some anatomical differences I could think of, but...
Yeah, there are definitely some anatomical differences. But what they think is that because, like I say, they turn human by removing seal skins, what people think is that what the Scottish people saw were travellers who have travelled over large distances in water, have taken off their clothing to allow it to dry, because again, they are kind of water resistant rather than being waterproof.
Yeah.
And they've been letting it dry, and so they have mistaken them for being Selkies.
Well, what can I say? People are not always the smartest.
It's true. It's, people do try and come up with some really, really interesting ideas.
Yeah.
They are either helpful and friendly or completely dangerous and vengeful. They don't have a middle ground.
Again, kind of like mermaids. Must be something in the water.
They are known in stories and legends to save children and drowning people, but they are also
good.
vengeful creatures, and they, in the stories, occasionally try to seduce people into coming into the water, and those individuals are obviously never seen again. It's assumed that they've obviously been drowned.
Well, maybe they just are given a seal jacket and they put it on and then live as one of them. Who knows?
That's one of the theories the guys in the labs have come up with. But again, we've never been able to go to their home. They are still incredibly wary, even of us, the CCI. So we've not been able to, say, like, work out or track down people who have gone missing.
I mean, one question that kind of pops up for me is, it seems like the human form is their normal form. If the other one is something they can just put on or put off. Can you even say that one of them is their real shape?
If I'm perfectly honest, I don't really know. I don't know which is the selkie and which is the sham, if I'm perfectly honest, you know. Purely because you're not wrong. But again, maybe they actually do spend most of the time, even in their subsurface like environments.
Yeah.
Maybe they spend their entire time in the seal form. Or maybe they turn back into a human form. Or maybe they've even got a third form we don't know about. Again, we've not done like investigations into these creatures. We're not done post-mortems and things, because it's not like something where we, have them in captivity.
Yeah.
They have their own society. If a selkie dies, they try to reclaim the body.
Okay.
And politically, we can't stop them.
Sure. Well, maybe we could put up some kind of student exchange program. Just send some students over there and get some of theirs, and just learn from each other and figure out what the hell is going on.
Yeah, perform autopsies on them. Yeah, sounds good.
What else are students for?
Exactly. But like I've said, they present as very attractive and even seductive men or women, and the folktales around purport them to be even very romantic or even quite happy to engage in, sexual relationships with people, which even results in children.
Okay, interesting.
Most of the time, the children are human.
Yeah.
But there have been some slight oddities, or at least that's what's been reported, that there have been some slight oddities.
What oddities are we talking about?
So you've got things like webbed hands and feet.
Okay.
And even one child that apparently had the face of a seal.
I've seen babies that kind of look like this. That checks out.
It's human. What we do know, though, is that the skins that the Selkies wear is unique to each Selkie. So they can't move between skins.
Okay.
They have their own skin.
So what happens to the skin if they're not wearing it? Is it just, do they leave it lying around somewhere, or does it disappear, or?
It's literally just left lying around.
Okay.
Because that's where some of the stories that we're going to go on to in a minute start to come from. But it has been known that Selkies can even survive being skinned in their seal forms, which is quite a horrific thing to have to think about. But yes, in the past, hunters have quite literally found a bunch of Selkies thinking they were normal seals and skinned them.
Skinned them alive?
Yep. And somehow they seem to be able to survive the process.
I mean, that part doesn't really surprise me, to be honest. If they can just pull away their skin, then why shouldn't they survive someone else skinning them? But I'm very disturbed at the skinning alive part. But maybe that's just me.
It's still a disturbing thing to think. Even if it is literally they are the equivalent of taking off someone's coat, it's still a disturbing thing to kind of come across.
Absolutely.
And in Iceland, they do believe that Selkies are either sea-dwelling elves,
Mm-hmm.
or some form of mermaid.
Okay, yeah. I mean, there are about 1 million forms of mermaids, or technically mermaids, or technically not mermaids, you know. There's so many variants. I would be surprised if they are in some form related.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to get some information from them about this kind of area, you know, a little bit about their background, maybe even get some things like, you know, blood samples and the like. But
Yeah.
as you'll learn from some of the stories, they are not very trustful of us, or at least their hierarchy is not very trustful of us, and they have good reason.
Yeah, I mean, if I was being skinned alive, then I probably wouldn't be too trustworthy either afterwards.
One of the really, really interesting myths that I think you'll love to hear is that some people believe that Selkies are the result of a sea witch who cast a spell on the king of the sea's children, cursing them to become Selkies forever.
Who is the king of the sea in that scenario?
It has absolutely never been specified.
Oh, good.
They just like to tell us about it.
Well, sounds great. Yeah. I mean, maybe it's maybe they're talking about the Leviathan. They're all Leviathan's children.
Yeah, maybe they are talking a little bit about Leviathan. But the other one that's quite interesting, like I said earlier, in religion, they believe that the Selkie can only turn human occasionally because they are made up of condemned souls, or that they are humans who have committed sins, or that they are even fallen angels. So when you said earlier that maybe they're angels of some kind,
I knew it.
Yeah, that's where religion comes into this again. They find this creature and they tell us why it's negative.
Yeah. I'm not sure why fallen angels would turn into seals, but you know, that's just details.
Yeah, I'm not sure either. But either way, that's kind of the myth and legend that surrounds Selkies, with some of the truth around them that we know to be certain. But I'm sure you'd like to hear a few stories about them.
Absolutely.
Well, some of these stories are wild. Absolutely crazy.
I can imagine.
So, some stories have it that people have tricked Selkies into marriage by stealing and hiding the seal skins, and therefore preventing them from returning to seal form and returning to the sea, which then obviously leaves them unhappy and always pining for the sea. And they use that essentially to coerce them into marriage.
Pining for the fjords, you mean?
We're moving on from that one very quickly. There's stories of a wife who spends her time in captivity, longing for the sea, her true home, and will often be seen gazing longingly.
People are bastards, aren't they?
Yeah, they kind of are. They've even, as I've said already, though, they can have children with humans that generally come out with looking very, very human. But it has been noted in some of these stories that while, yes, they are subservient in that way, they will just marry, they will do as they're told, and if they come across their own skin, they will immediately return to the sea. And even some stories report that they abandon the entire family, even the children that they once loved. Sometimes it is believed, though, that the Selkie may revisit her family once a year, and typically you'll see like a seal who is very, very friendly towards a specific set of children, but no one else, as if to say they are her family.
Yeah, you know, divorces are always a tricky thing, and you have to make it work somehow.
Well, in one version, there is a Selkie wife that was never seen again, at least in a human form. There's also been stories about the Selkies, once they've found their skin, obviously leaving, going back to the sea, and later on the partner, because it's not just female Selkies, there are male Selkies as well who have been caught in this entire setup as well, that they will actually come back and murder their partner.
Well, divorces are tricky, so...
Well, it's one of those things where I turn around and go, I can understand why.
Yeah.
Because when, obviously all these stories talk about them being man and wife,
Yeah.
Yeah,
and as I understand it, they were often tricked or forced into marriage, so
exactly.
I get it.
It sounds a little bit more like partner and captor.
Yeah.
The male Selkies, though, have actually been known to try and seduce female women in all of these stories as well. And this is one of my favourite lines in these stories, they have great seductive powers over human women.
Yes. I mean, just look at people going nuts over Aquaman. I guess that's comparable.
I mean, every time I read that, I just go, oh my god, my girlfriend got stolen by a seal. Oh my god, dude, she left me for a seal.
A Navy SEAL? No.
No, a grey one. When did you last see them? Heading towards a walrus.
Oh god.
Yeah, and the male Selkies apparently typically seek those who are dissatisfied with their lives.
Oh.
And prey on those women and men very, very specifically, apparently.
Well, now I'm kind of surprised I haven't met one of them.
Oh, maybe you haven't. You've just not noticed.
Well, I mean, you told me the other week that this isn't my dating platform, but if any weirdly attractive seals are out there looking for a partner, then hey, call me.
But some of the stories, I mean, obviously, don't get me wrong, those stories about the male Selkies having incredible seductive powers and everything. I mean, I've never seen them, but maybe I'm just not their type. But this is obviously where the myth and the stories and the folktales start to kind of come in, because there are some legends that say Selkies can only turn human at intervals of like 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So if they have had a relationship with a human partner, they will only come back on every 7 years, or only come back in every 7 seasons, all those kinds of things. They do seem to really like the number 7 in these myths.
It's not a very fulfilling relationship, is it?
Apparently not. But I can tell you, Selkies don't just have to wait to turn human every 7 years. I've met enough of them. They are very much active.
Okay.
Way more than just being able to come on and turn human 7 years.
You've got me curious. How did you meet them?
We do send diplomatic delegations to the Selkies. We try to make sure that human activity isn't directly impacting their habitats, especially when we're talking about water, because sounds travel in water for a very, very, very long period of time.
Yeah.
We just don't want to be causing any issues there, plain and simple. It's not going to help if we do.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
and I mean, the two of us are famous for being great ambassadors, so it's obvious they'd send you.
I know. I will say, I was not the one speaking.
Well, color me surprised.
Hey, they allow me to speak sometimes. They allowed me to speak to Santa, and it wasn't my fault.
Let's not talk about whose fault that was.
Elf Union.
Moving on.
I actually wasn't with the diplomatic delegation itself specifically. I was just there as part of the response team in case there was an issue.
Okay. What kind of issue were you expecting?
Well, we have different kinds of issues. Sometimes it is, like I've already said, a safety issue. The Selkies, if they are offended, they can change very, very quickly. In the stories, they are subservient, but only because people have something that they need, their seal skins.
Mm-hmm.
So when they have their seal skins, and they are whole, they can become very, very dangerous very quickly, and they can
Okay.
harm people. We don't outright take weaponry or arms to these delegations. We don't directly involve ourselves in that way, but we will have, say, a response team who can move in and protect our people, protect the Selkies, protect whoever we need
Okay.
to.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's not the Selkies themselves that are causing an issue. Sometimes, because we have these meetings on land, there is a chance that the public might get close by. So a response team will go and deter them and move them on.
Makes sense.
Or if there is, say, an issue that the Selkies bring to us, which is what happened when I was part of the response team, we are there to respond to said issue and try and resolve it as soon as possible.
Okay.
And what happened this time was that we had a tip-off from the Selkies themselves saying that one of their people had gone missing in the local area again. We immediately had our suspicions based on the fact that there are just so many damn stories about what we suspect was happening.
Yeah.
We just set out straight away. And they kind of came back. They told us the Selkie had been visiting this beach around this time. They should have come back like 2 or 3 days prior. No one was sure where they were. And obviously, they were a little bit worried. The stories, the history that we have with Selkies as humans, the Selkies wanted to know what was going on. They were actually looking to go and do their own investigation.
Yeah.
We asked them to please just allow us a couple of days to try and sort this out, rather than having a bunch of Selkies that might be kind of nasty and vengeful.
Yeah. Sounds like a good idea.
Yeah. We just don't want them to cause any trouble or to get themselves hurt, because modern technology, yes, a person can harm a Selkie.
Yeah. Or steal their skin, I guess.
Exactly. So I immediately sent my team off, a couple of my guys, to go to the beach, start combing the beach. We weren't going to find them. If the Selkies didn't find them, we weren't going to find them. But start gathering evidence, start finding out where they potentially might have gone.
Yeah.
And in the meantime, I just got my map out and started looking at local area, see if there's a local town, a village, start kind of canvassing, going along, trying to find what we can. Obviously, we had a very, very detailed description of the individual in both seal and human form.
Yeah.
Which was...
I suppose one of these was more helpful than the other.
Yeah, I'm going to say. We understood what they looked like as a human a lot more than we understood from what they look like as a seal, but you've got to show willing.
Sure. Yeah.
But yes, this is why I say that I know that men can be taken in the same way, not just the women Selkies.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we found when our guys came back from the beach was evidence that a male Selkie had been in the area.
Yeah.
And that for some reason they hadn't returned back to the sea.
Okay.
Because one of our prevailing theories was potentially, have they been eaten by a predator?
Of course, yeah, that's always an option.
It's entirely possible.
Yeah. Maybe by a cougar in this case.
God, we're going to move on from that one. But it's entirely possible in this case. They did get back into the sea and just a large sea-based predator got them. And it's got nothing to do with humans at all. Really, really unfortunate situation. Yeah. So sorry. What we found when we went towards the local village was evidence that some new person had appeared at, I don't want to say a elderly woman's residence, but just a bit of a more mature individual, shall we say.
Yes. I was right, is what you're saying.
I am saying nothing. But essentially, yes, they had noticed that over the last week or so, the elderly or the more mature woman who had been widowed for a few years had suddenly got what they were classing as a new carer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I didn't want to ask any more, and I definitely didn't want to kind of go a bit further into that one.
Yeah.
So
Better
we
that
went
way.
to yeah. So we went to her home and obviously knocked on the door. We started asking a few questions. Hello, ma'am. We are. Blah, blah, blah. We obviously don't use our CCI badges or anything like that. We are using the authority of the local police force.
Yeah.
We have someone in the local police force who was there with us, so
Sure.
it wasn't impersonating, technically.
It's all about the technicalities.
And what we found was she was a little bit wary to start with, but then for a little bit of questioning and a little bit of like subtle gesturing towards, we're not that worried if you've done something weird. She actually became very, very talkative and even quite proud of what she'd done.
Okay.
And that's when she opened up the door to her second bedroom, and we found a selkie male in human form.
Yes.
In what I'm going to politely describe as a compromising position.
You know, I kind of want to know the details, but also not. I'm not sure where I stand on that.
I am not telling you the details.
God damn it.
I don't want to remember the details. Obviously, our police contact just kind of went down with, don't do this again.
Yeah.
Rather than arresting the poor woman, because she was a widower, she was just lonely, and she just wanted a friend. Problem is, she decided to bring this friend as a selkie.
Yeah. There are better options, I suppose.
Yeah. But obviously, we recovered the selkie's seal skin. We provided it back to them, and they returned to the delegation, and all was well. We managed to stop any kind of incidents, because I can promise you the selkies themselves probably wouldn't have been that kind to the old lady.
Yeah.
And then we would have had a serious kind of incident on our hands.
Well, crisis averted.
Yeah, but definitely a bit of a weird day at work. But it was quite a nice one. It genuinely took us a few hours. I was quite impressed with the investigative team. This was a new team for me. I hadn't worked with any of these guys before, and yeah, we've got some pretty good wardens coming up in the ranks.
Okay, yeah. I've noticed that as well. The next generation is, I don't want to say they are better than we are, but, I want to keep my job.
I think they've benefited from our experience.
Yes, of course. They are standing on the shoulders of giants. But if you're looking for other giants with shoulders to stand on, do you have any ideas where you could find those?
If I'm perfectly honest, absolutely no. But I also know somewhere where you can definitely stand on the shoulders of people who aren't that good, and that is the Discord.
That's a great way to offend our audience.
Well, I mean, they're here.
Fair enough.
They're gluttons for punishment. They're listening to this.
Fair enough.
But yes, we have our Discord. You can find the link to the invite to the Discord in the show notes. And you will not regret it in the slightest, because you can go in and you start asking questions. You can ask us questions. You can ask each other questions. And you can start suggesting various creatures, because between Chris and myself, we have practically seen most, if not everything. And we are usually the ones who find the new things when they pop up.
Exactly.
As Chris says, we are experienced individuals, giants in our field.
Yes, we are giants. Yes. And also, I mean, you're part of so many Discords. What's one more?
What's one more?
Let's be honest.
Yeah. But if they are interested in more episodes, where could they go to find it?
Well, you probably know where to find those because you are listening to this, but we are on all the major podcasting platforms, so give us a rating, subscribe to us to not miss out on future episodes. Also, if you haven't already, go back and listen to our older episodes. We have covered all kinds of creatures at this point, and you can now find us on YouTube because Google is doing weird things, and we had to move our podcast, and now we have videos on our own channel, and why not give that a look? It's very pleasingly colored, and you can look at not us while listening to us, but it's a visual component, and you should definitely give that a go.
Spend some time staring at the logo. It is
Yes.
very, very pretty. If anything,
I'm not saying that it's great to look at when you're under the influence of any substances, but I'm also not saying that.
he is not saying that.
Yes.
But in the meantime, unless there's anything else really to say, that's it for us this week, guys. But thank you very much for listening, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.